Hey everybody, it's Barbara Ann. Welcome back to my channel, Straight Out of Context. Yeah, that's right. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is doing another dance trend to a Cardi B song. This is a cringe that even I wouldn't attempt. Being a cancer survivor, I certainly wouldn't want to do that. Right there. Finger gun and falling on your ass. But she also did this on Instagram. She wanted to show everybody, clapping back to all of her haters, that she has lost weight since giving birth to her first child. But she goes on to say this. She is tired of receiving harassment towards her and her family. It's hard to live like this. Well, then why are you a public figure, author, social media influencer, wannabe advocate, and infamous celebrity? Nobody made her do this. But see, Mike Stanfield and Melissa G. Moore definitely spent 10 years curating this fame, not only for a piece of the pie, but to ultimately save Gypsy's life with the defense strategy Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So let's ask ourselves three main questions. Was her mother ever diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Was her mother ever criminally or civilly charged for any abuse or neglect? And is there any definitive piece of proof that her mother ever did any of the things she claims? You would be surprised to learn the true answer to those three questions. And those are the three questions that the mainstream media and content creators should be asking themselves. But first, let's have a little laugh and look at the comment section. People are saying, I'm going to tell my kids that this is J-Lo. And she says that this is the biggest compliment of her life. People are actually encouraging this cringe behavior. Why? Because they absolutely love the fact that it's cringe behavior. She literally just fell on her butt holding a finger gun. Yeah. You don't think that that's instant karma, or that the universe is telling her, hey, you're a mommy killer. The last time you pulled a weapon, a whole entire man is serving life for it. But hey, basic human rights, civil and constitutional rights don't matter to Gypsy Rose Blanchard as long as she has her physical freedom. And hey, I'm going to correct this because everybody keeps saying sweet deal. It's actually called a sweetheart plea deal. And I've said this over and over for over a year and a half. Even before she got out, I spoke about this. It is referring to a criminal plea agreement perceived as overly lenient or favorable to the defendant, often raising concerns about fairness and potential favoritism in the criminal justice system. Essentially, it's a plea deal where the prosecution offers a significantly reduced charge or sentence compared to what the defendant could face if the case went to trial, as it should if it's a murder case, potentially benefiting the defendant at the expense of justice or other parties. Like I have always said for over a year and a half, this is called a sweetheart plea deal, not a sweet plea deal or a sweet deal. Not only Boeing, the aircraft manufacturer who was responsible for the MAX airplanes, but Jeffrey Epstein, the first time he was ever charged and prosecuted, received sweetheart plea deals. Favorable terms. The key characteristics of a sweetheart deal is that it often offers terms that are usually advantageous for the defendant. This could include pleading guilty to a lesser charge than what they actually did, receiving a lighter sentence than expected, avoiding prosecution on more serious charges that should be attached for what they really did, obtaining pretrial diversion, allowing the case to be dismissed with certain conditions. The public perception. The term sweetheart deal or sweetheart plea deal often evokes a sense of suspicion and raises concerns about potential bias and unfairness in the criminal justice system. It suggests that the agreement may have been negotiated unfairly, perhaps due to the defendant's influence, connections, or the prosecution's desire to avoid a complex or lengthy trial, or the mainstream media backlash of society and the public. Hunter Biden is another example of this. The controversy surrounding the Hunter Biden plea deal is a prime example where Republican lawmakers criticized the agreement as lenient and potentially influenced by the defendant's family and ties. Many public defense attorneys are friends with district attorneys and prosecuting attorneys. And despite Boeing, Hunter Biden, even Jeffrey Epstein, there are specific reasons why these sweetheart plea deals are very bad to society at large. And it's not just the unfairness, undermining accountability. It can make it appear as though the justice system isn't holding individuals fully accountable for their actions, disregarding victim interests. In cases involving victims, a sweetheart plea deal can be seen as failing to adequately address their concerns or provide justice, or victims' rights, which is a cornerstone of the criminal justice system. Victims and the family of victims have the civil, constitutional, and basic human right to not only demand justice and seek justice, but to be compensated if they don't. And the reason why we all know that this happens is because it's a deal that is usually worked out in secret between defense attorneys or other attorneys and prosecuting attorneys, district attorneys. And this is something that we know happens, but we don't often see it happen. While it may be beneficial to one party, it's going to inappropriately be disadvantaging to other parties and society at large, especially when society is owed a debt and justice fails to help pay that debt. The Gypsy Rose Blanchard case is one prime example of this. Not only did Nicholas GODEJOHN receive all of the blame and the brunt of all of the consequences, he lost his mother around the anniversary of the crime 5 years later. And that is how sweetheart plea deals can disadvantage victims' rights, victims, and victims' families. But that is of little to no concern to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She has often spoken about how she cannot talk to or communicate with her co-defendant. Not that she would want to anyway. She calls him a psychopath and a POS. But she's also said on her friends' lives that she cannot do the specific type of prison reform and advocacy that she really wants to. But that's not what she said to Kim Kardashian. And let's make it very clear, you do not have to directly, one-on-one or by third party, contact any co-defendant or felon to do the right thing and advocate for the truth and justice. She will never do that for Nick. And that is because her freedom rode on the fact that he took and bore the brunt of all of what she did. And unfortunately, she knows that. The only thing she cares about is going on TikTok, going on Instagram, and trying to be a celebrity. And for some reason, even when she made the Gypsy Rose Media on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, and that absolutely did not get the following she wanted, she just quickly reinstated her account. Remember when her TikTok account was gone for over 28 days? She literally brought it back within 48 hours of it being permanently deleted and all 9.6 million followers gone. Boom. Her commodity, her monetization, her capitalization would have been gone. But what did she say before? She said this.
I had absolutely no trouble or doubts of deleting that public one. And I have people that are like, oh my God, you're insane for deleting that kind of a following. And I'm like, I could give a F about a following. That's not real life.
You know what is real life? Nicholas GODEJOHN. His life. His mother's life. His father's life, his brother's life, his stepfather's life. You know, I have watched many, many content creators in the true crime community. I myself made my first video about Gypsy Rose Blanchard over 4 years ago. But as of October 12th, 2023, a whole 2 months before she was released, I made my first video about not trusting somebody who commits these kinds of crimes. They are a danger to society, to themselves, to their family, to anybody that associates with them and anybody that is in their immediate sphere. But one of the number one things I see being said in the comment section of no matter whose content it is how does somebody like this sleep at night knowing what they did? And you know what I think the answer is to that? She sleeps just fine because clearly there are sociopathic, psychopathic, and narcissistic traits there. Only that kind of person can do what she did and be okay with herself or her reflection. Any other normal, decent human being in the world would be consumed by anxiety, guilt, remorse for having even thought something like that, let alone plan it. for over 3 years with another human being. And don't remember that she actually tried to take the life of her mother in the spring of 2011 and again on June 14th of 2011, a whole year and a half before she ever met Nicholas in October of 2012. And remember, she actually sent inappropriate photos of her nude body to her stepmother, her sister, and her father when she was a full-grown adult. But those 3 questions I said earlier, remember those. Dee Dee Blanchard was never diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. She was never convicted on any kind of criminal or civil charges. And there is absolutely not one piece of solid evidence and proof that she ever did anything to her daughter. But there is evidence that there is justice for Gypsy's toothbrush. And may justice finally be served for that poor toothbrush. Let's jump right in. Defense witness Gypsy Blanchard. Defense counsel deposed co-defendant Gypsy Blanchard on November 1st of 2018, just before trial, and called her as a defense witness to testify that she planned the murder. Transcript 833. However, counsel was otherwise wholly ineffective in eliciting through Gypsy other readily available and admissible evidence to support their theory of defense and to counter the state's theory of defense. Over the course of their almost 3-year relationship, Gypsy sent Nick close to 100 videos, which the state had provided to trial counsel in discovery. On cross-examination, the state asked if Nicholas introduced her to the idea of role play with alter egos, and Gypsy replied, yes. Transcript 841. Gypsy further testified that as part of the role play, Nick was the master and she the slave. Transcript 842. The state went on to suggest through their cross-examination on the lot of those videos, Nicholas would send her a script and instruct her on what to do in the videos. 842 to 843. Transcript. Gypsy claimed to do things in the video that she didn't always want to do them, but because Nicholas told her to do them. Transcript 843. She further admitted to engaging in rape fantasies with Nicholas, but claimed to not be crazy about the idea and that she was simply indulging him. Transcript 843. Though counsel had available videos which suggested otherwise, counsel failed to establish that this testimony was false. Only a very small portion of the videos appear to be scripted by Nicholas. The grand majority are Gypsy's own creation. Some of the sexually explicit videos are formatted to look like a real movie with credits at the end. There are many in which she has sex with herself using her fingers or objects, including a toothbrush, where she appears to be very much enjoying herself and not engaging in the activity simply to indulge Nicholas. There are also videos in which she is the dominant character who talks about ways she will RAPE Nicholas. On a 13-minute and 52-second long video dated September 22nd, 2013, Gypsy is role-playing in her Demona persona. She explains that she is a SLUT with an evil streak. She can torture, she can do anything except a few things. She can't physically harm Gypsy's mother or Nick because those 2 people are off limits. Besides the 2 things she can't do, she describes what she can do. She can steal, she can torture, she can KILL. She likes to drink and be sexually naughty. She talks at great length about how skilled she is at stealing from stores. She goes on to say she overwhelms Nick sometimes and she can RAPE him by force. She talks in detail about the ways she can do that by tying him to a chair or a bed. She explains that she will be able to get money in the future by going to a bar and agreeing to have sex with a man for money, but instead she would DRUG him, hit him over the head with a bottle and steal his wallet. She advised Nicholas that they have to play it smart and be very careful what they do as a team because it takes skill to not get caught. She closes by saying that she will be very, very good at being bad together. Another 10-minute video dated May 26, 2014 contains 2 videos. In the second video, she appears as Demona wearing a long red wig and lingerie. She tells Nicholas that things have changed. She is the dominant and he is the slave. She says she doesn't enjoy punishing him, but it has to be done. She describes how she will reward him with sex, but if he displeases her, she has ways of punishing men. If he fails to do as she asks, she, Damona, will take away Nicholas's time with Gypsy. She threatens to punish Nicholas by refusing to allow Gypsy to talk to him for a week. She will command him to perform sexual acts on her, and he'll have to do it or she will be displeased. She praises him for being a good slave so far and continues to encourage him to do a very good job. In yet another video dated May 27, 2013, there is no indication of any script. Gypsy is wearing a long blonde wig and uses an object and her fingers to have sex with herself for almost 12 minutes. She is very animated and screams loudly, "F-U-C-K my P-U-S-S-Y, F-U-C-K it, F-U-C-K me. Master, harder." There are many other examples of non-scripted videos in which Gypsy displays this behavior. In another video compilation that runs just over 19 minutes and is dated January 24th of 2014, she tells Nicholas that she dreams about him, and though other men hit on her, she only wants him. She explains that he is perfect to her, and when Nicholas looks at her, it is like he sees every thought in her head and sees her emotions. They are soulmates and perfect for each other. She has sex with herself in both videos using a toothbrush in one. In an 8-minute long video dated August 11, 2014, Damona addresses Nicholas as her slave and informs him there are new rules and that her punishment of him will be extreme. She will cause him pain by making him strip and raping him with a strap on so hard that he will scream for her to stop. She will be meaner and meaner until he submits to her. She says she is a bitch and he should not dare to cross her. At the end, she touches herself and tells Nicholas that is all he will get for now because trial counsel failed to investigate and present this evidence. The jury never heard or saw this information, which would have countered the state's theory. Trial counsel also had available through discovery Facebook messages between Gypsy and Nicholas from Gypsy's Damona Love Slave account. In these messages, on October 26th of 2014, Gypsy role plays as Damona and orders Nicholas's character Victor to get rid of the Facebook account for her right now. She tells him that someone messaged Gypsy's mom about the Facebook account and that the walls are closing in. On direct examination, counsel asked Gypsy how many boyfriends she had prior to Nicholas, and Gypsy replied, none. Transcript 830. Had counsel investigated information readily available to them, counsel would have known that that was not true. In addition to evidence to the contrary available through witness Dan Glidewell below, Gypsy wrote on August 10th of 2014 through her Damona Love Slave account as follows. Yes, my master. It was 2010 and 2011. I had just surfaced inside Gypsy when I started playing games with guys, and I used guys' fingers to make all the texts and take all the pics. The men asked me to send them nudes, so I took off my top and took the pic and sent it. I had fun teasing and saying that I would have sex with them, but I never went through with my words, only the texts and pics I sent to them. 4 guys. But Gypsy's mom found out and threatened the men that if they ever came close to me again, she would put them all in jail because Gypsy was underage. And they were like 35 to 50 years old. I was stupid, master. I was testing my limits of my sexuality is what she meant. And I was getting male attention like I wanted. I told you I was untamed before I met them. You tamed me, and I've been loyal to you ever since. Heart emoji. In addition, the state adduced evidence that Nicholas threatened to kill himself on June 2nd, 2015, close in time to the date of the offense. Transcript 750. Trial counsel failed to present evidence that Gypsy made threats to herself multiple times as early as May 2013. This would have suggested to the jury that Nicholas was not the manipulator as the state argued he was, but the manipulated who mimicked what he was learning from Gypsy online. Instead, the jury had never heard or saw this information. In her testimony, Gypsy claimed that it wasn't until she was 19 years old that she started to piece together that she was not actually sick. Transcript 813. She further testified that she did not understand the extent of how healthy she was until after her arrest. Transcript 813. Counsel failed to elicit evidence readily available that was contrary to this assertion and would further defense counsel's theory of the case that Nicholas was particularly vulnerable to her manipulation because of his autism, specifically Asperger's syndrome. Evidence as available to counsel that when Gypsy left Missouri for Wisconsin, she took only pain medication with her and no other prescription medication. Further, in a video dated May 26, 2014, Gypsy shows Nicholas how she can stand and walk. She explains that when she was 6 years old, she went into the hospital, and during that surgery, the doctor said she had a seizure and was paralyzed. They didn't know if it was only temporary. She started getting feeling and tingling in her legs. She was young and kept it to herself. She kept it from her mom because she was afraid that her mom would stop loving her. So she kept it to herself until through 2011. Literally, this says this right here, not Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So she kept it to herself and kept it from her mom and was afraid that her mom would stop loving her until 2011 when she rebelled and ran away from home. She said explaining to their friends that she could walk would be too hard. She said that she would like for people to know the truth, but she would lose a lot of friends. Further, counsel failed to establish that Gypsy suggested Nicholas did not need to wear gloves at the time of the murder. Arguably, this suggests that she wanted him to leave prints on the knife. When first confronted by law enforcement that her mother was deceased, Gypsy feigned a complete lack of knowledge about her death and stated that she would slap her boyfriend if he did something stupid. She tells the officer her birthday is 1995 to make herself younger, when it was in fact 1991. She suggests she could call her mother for a list of her medications and tells the detective that her mother told her there was something dangerous about Nicholas and compared him to Jeffrey Dahmer, all suggestive of the fact that Gypsy planned to try and frame and implicate Nicholas and exonerate herself. And she did that by ultimately doing the Facebook messages, the bee is dead. Trial counsel was ineffective for unreasonably and prejudicially failing to investigate and present this evidence through Gypsy to support their theory and to contradict the state's theory of their case. And then there is the testimony of Dan Glidewell, which proves she's lying. Gypsy also tells investigators in her interrogation video that she knows there was a mess up with Hurricane Katrina and her birth certificate, and she knew that she was actually born in 1991, although she falsely presents 1995 as an alternate birth date for herself. But she also lies and says that her mother didn't get along with Nicholas and didn't want her dating, even though she had already previously dated multiple people, including Sebastian, Brian, Dan Glidewell. But here it actually says that Dee Dee had talked to Nicholas on the phone, that her mother Dee Dee knew that she was dating Nicholas and had gotten into an argument with him over the phone. She took her mother's life because she wanted to run off and be with Nicholas. And when they were caught, she threw Nicholas under the bus just like that. Occam's razor. The most logical is the most probable. And when we look at cases like this, I know a lot of people want to delve into all of these conspiracy theories, and that's fun. That's fine. But also, people don't want to hear it. But usually the most logical explanation is the most probable explanation. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is a liar. Her mother was never diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. She was never prosecuted or investigated with an open case by Child Protective Services, Family Services, Adult Services, nor any law enforcement for child abuse or neglect in any capacity, whether civil or criminally. She also has never been proved 100% with any one or collective pieces of evidence that she ever did anything to intentionally abuse or neglect Gypsy Rose Blanchard, her daughter. With that in mind, Gypsy Rose Blanchard really is sick. She really does have a microdeletion, a rare genetic chromosome disorder. She herself was an adult pretending to be a paraplegic to everybody around her, including her mother. And she pretended to be sick because that's how she got her mother's love, affection, and attention. It is, in my opinion, having read all of the case files, all of the appeals, all of the county clerk and circuit court documents, and all of the FOIAs that I have gotten over the last several months, that Gypsy Rose Blanchard is the one that has Munchausen syndrome. And furthermore, the way that she used her pregnancy and her status as needing to be protected because she's pregnant, as if she's ever the only pregnant woman that's ever existed, really shows me that she is using medical conditions and pregnancy to gain sympathy and money, affection, and attention from not just medical professionals, but society. I think, in my own opinion, this is as logical as it can possibly be. Gypsy Rose Blanchard wanted to take the life of her mother because she hated her mother. She despised her mother. She was jealous of her mother. Her mother wouldn't let her just take off with strange men from the internet, chomos from the internet, mentally disabled men from the internet, and she took her life for it. But Gypsy doesn't know what love is. She doesn't know what respect is. She doesn't know what class is. She doesn't know what grace is, because she certainly threw Nicholas under the bus the first chance she got. That, my friends, is a psychological egoist who cares nothing but for their own self-preservation.
Startlingly, it was Gypsy who went online to announce, that, and to go even further and describe a scenario where she was raped is just perverse. It implies a fair degree of sociopathy.
The way the girl acted. I mean, how can you do something to your mother and lose your mother and just act like that? I was like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
A woman who had diabetes and weight issues because of the diabetes, and endometrial cancer. Yes, Dee Dee Blanchard had cancer. I am a cancer survivor of cervical cancer myself, so I can only imagine how physically difficult life must have been for Dee Dee, just managing every day, managing her pain, her weight, her physical activity, and even managing her household and the health issues of her child.
Daddy, I understand that we haven't had a chance to get close in a long time, probably my whole life.
I have a lot of questions, obviously. I'm confused.
The stuff they say in the news is horrible and not true. You know that I love my mama, and you know that I would never hurt her. Just know that I'm innocent and know that I'm still your little girl.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard can rebrand 1,000,000 times over, but it's not going to change the fact that she is insecure and she knows who she really is inside. She knows who she really is when she looks in the mirror. And unfortunately, glorifying somebody that took the life of 3 people, shame on you, society. Shame on you. It is beyond time for not only Gypsy Rose Blanchard to come out and actually tell the real truth, but it is time for mainstream media to start doing their job. But no matter what, Gypsy still displays all of the signs and symptoms of somebody that has sociopathy, narcissism, and psychopathy, because she absolutely refuses to take any responsibility or accountability. It is amazing she was even granted parole. It's amazing that she actually has over 9 million followers on TikTok, even though 40% of it is fake dead accounts. It's still a testament to her level of manipulation and how good she is at lying.
But Dr. Feldman, he says that the Facebook post, quote, implies a fair degree of sociopathy. This is what Gypsy Rose says in one of her prison confessions. She says, quote, when I was first arrested, I had no remorse, unquote. In her HBO interview, she says, and this is a quote, I didn't know right from wrong, unquote. These are direct quotes from Gypsy Rose. So I don't want to necessarily contextualize those. Or to, I don't want to place those in a diagnosis, but I think most of our viewers would kind of get the point that those would be statements that would cause some concern.
Hello, welcome to my channel, Straight Out of Context. I am Barbara Ann. If you do not know who this is Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She was arrested on June 15th of 2015 for the premeditated first-degree murder of her mother. A lot of people don't know that in the spring of 2011, she tried to unalive her mom. She tried a second time, again on June 14th of 2011, and then she spent almost 3 years manipulating her internet boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN, into helping her finally get the job done. You know what they say, third time's a charm. Both Gypsy and Nick were arrested at Nick's mother and stepfather's house on June 15th of 2015. Another fact a lot of people don't know is not even 7 months after she was arrested, they already began filming for the first of many docuseries, documentaries, shows, or books that Gypsy Rose would take part in, and that began with HBO's Mommy Dead and Dearest. And this was set to premiere on March 11th of 2017. However, it did air later at May 15, 2017. November 22nd of 2017, Dr. Phil did an exclusive interview with Gypsy Rose Blanchard while she was serving her time. I'm sure everybody remembers this interview because this is where Gypsy is quoted saying that her mother taught her to be a liar, a great liar, one without any conscience. November 6th of 2018, Lightbox filmed this documentary called Gypsy's Revenge. March 20th of 2019, Hulu did a dramatization series based on Gypsy Rose Blanchard's life and crime called The Act, of which Patricia Arquette and Joey King played, both the mother and daughter duo. On January 21st of 2021, Killer Cases did this episode called Killing Mama about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. December 28th of 2023, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was granted parole and she was released. A week later, on January 5th, 2024, Lifetime, who had filmed this for a year and a half prior to the air date, aired this. The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. On January 5th of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her husband, Ryan Anderson, were not only allowed to leave the state, they were allowed to go to a whole different state and city, and this is where she appeared on the ABC show called The View. January 5th of 2024, Gypsy goes and changes her clothes, and she also does an interview for Entertainment Tonight, but this time she has her husband, Ryan Anderson, on camera with her. This very clearly is a strategic PR tour. January 8th of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her husband Ryan go on the Vile Files. January 9th of 2024, Ben Bello Books released Conversations on the Eve of Freedom by Gypsy Rose Blanchard. However, the two ghostwriters that really wrote this book are Melissa Moore and her literary agent. In March of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard publicly announces that she left her husband, Ryan Anderson, and she was filing for divorce. May 3rd of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard is on The View again. However, she's interviewed from a red carpet appearance because she was not in studio. January 26th of 2024, ABC's show 2020 did an episode about Gypsy Rose Blanchard entitled The Next Act. However, they updated this and they reran it 2 more times, again in May and in August of 2024. June 3rd of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard gets her reality show post-release with Lifetime called Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. June 5th of 2024, Chris Jericho actually releases an interview that he had done with Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her husband, Ryan Anderson. Now, if you pay close attention, you can see that this must have been filmed months before she and Ryan actually separated. Because that same day, on June 5th, 2024, Ryan Anderson goes on Extra TV where he does this interview and he's talking about exactly that. October 16th of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard reaches out to the Vile Files where she goes on and does another interview with them, but this time she doesn't have her husband, Ryan Anderson. She has her ex-fiance, Ken Urker, with her, where she's already very pregnant with his child. They go on to discuss everything that has transpired since Gypsy has been released and future plans. December 10th, 2024, this is going to be released by Ben Bella Books, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, My Time to Stand, a memoir. Now, Melissa Moore and her literary agent are actually the two ghost writers on this, as well as her other book. The only difference here is that there's going to be several versions of this, including you can get a hardback copy or you can get an audiobook copy where Gypsy Rose Blanchard herself narrates her book. Another fact a lot of people don't know is for almost 7 months now, Lifetime cameras and producers have already been filming and documenting Gypsy Rose's life. And this next season, if it airs, is probably going to be about Gypsy Rose Blanchard, love after lockup, or finding love after lockup, as well as the birth of her and Ken Urker's daughter. This, I got to give credit to Dysfunctional Cutie, because she's the one that uses AI to generate what her and Ken's baby might look like without all of the controversy. Now, there have also been thousands of episodes that have been done about Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her crime. And those have been covered by A&E, Crime Weekly, Law and Crime Network, as well as many content creators around the globe. Now, if you're wondering where you can stream any of those, now this was sent to me, and this has not been confirmed. However, it has a check mark. Supposedly, she has an OnlyFans account, as well as a Facebook, an Instagram, a TikTok, a YouTube. On November 2nd, 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard posted this on Facebook. Many people may have seen or read this already. Their voices clash with the agenda. The mask is on. Smile. And this is where I say that she needs to say no. But she has done nothing but monetize and capitalize her crime since day one. This was very strategic work of Melissa Moore, and if you do not know who she is the daughter of the infamous serial killer dubbed the Smiley Face Killer. Gypsy's defense attorney / now manager, Mike Stansfield. Her father, Rod Blanchard, and her stepmother, Christy Blanchard. As you can see from the very beginning, they are proud to be standing in front of any of these shows and documentaries and appearing and doing just that, taking pictures, promoting these shows, docuseries, books, reality shows, all of it. But the biggest way for Gypsy Rose Blanchard to promote, market, advertise her own shows, docuseries, reality show, and books is by going to social media, which is precisely what landed her in trouble to begin with. In the commission of her crime, she used Facebook, ChristianDatingForFree.com, and the internet. A couple months after her release, Gypsy Rose Blanchard became friends with this person who goes by the name Says Bree, or Bree with the Facts. She's been a staunch defender of Gypsy Rose Blanchard, but she has also given her really horrible advice, like accidentally not ending her live and telling her on a phone call how to lie to her parole officer, essentially coaching her. Proving to the entire world and social media alike that Gypsy Rose Blanchard is not changed. She's just getting better at hiding and lying. So while it's really hard to feel sorry for her because of her own actions, choices, words, and behaviors, she was almost 24 years old when she committed her crime, and she is a full-grown woman now who makes these active choices to go along and sign these contracts and do these deals, do these books, do these documentaries, these docuseries, and she has been for the entirety of her prison stay and now her release. Gypsy is due in January, and she has been a heavy smoker the entire pregnancy. Continuing on in this special edition of the Gypsy Rose Blanchard Agenda, on December 12th of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard did an exclusive interview with Kale Lowry, which aired on her Patreon. I purchased this interview and it is on my YouTube, available for anybody. If you would like to use it, feel free. Just please give credit. The very next day, on Friday, December 13th of 2024, Gypsy Rose Blanchard did an exclusive book signing in New Orleans at a bookstore. And of course, if you don't know all of the drama and controversy surrounding that, I highly suggest you look into that. On December 28th of 2024, on the exact 1-year anniversary of her release from prison, Gypsy Rose Blanchard gave birth to her first child, a daughter, Aurora Raina Erker. On March 5th of 2025, Gypsy Rose Blanchard did a makeup promo for an interview she would do with ABC. She also did a lot of social media posts and marketing with the makeup artist. On March 5th of 2025, Gypsy Rose Blanchard did an exclusive interview with Extra TV, and it aired that day. The very same day, she did an exclusive interview with Entertainment Tonight, but that did not air until March 6th of 2025. Also, on the very same day, she did an exclusive interview with ABC News. That did not air until March 11th of 2025. If you notice, she's wearing the same outfit on the same day that she traveled away from her home in Louisiana to LA. However, one day before that, on Monday, March 10th of 2025, Lifetime premiered Gypsy Rose Blanchard, Life After Lockup, Season 2. And then on March 24th of 2025, 60 Minutes Australia did an exclusive interview with Gypsy Rose Blanchard, which they had filmed months prior, but March 24th of 2025 is when it officially aired. Gypsy Rose posted this today, saying that Aurora had 3 nights straight of colic. But if you watch the interviews she did with Extra TV and Entertainment Tonight, she says, quote, "There is no book for parenting," unquote. She also says, quote, "I will not be putting my baby in front of the cameras at all, and I will not be putting her on social media. It will only be for private home photographs and videos," unquote. In another video, I show the actual clip of Gypsy saying that there is no book on parenting or how to do things right. Yet, here she is in the last several months doing that, reading parenting books. Another small inconsistency. And don't forget to subscribe, like, turn on notifications, and share.